What?
Got room, why not?
Yeah, I've seen several now, and I think that that's an excellent way to keep brothers around to sit and socialize and visit at the lodge instead of having to go out and pay to do it somewhere else.
I think that ties in with something we said before about if your dues are high enough, like you have these lodges that are what was the term I was trying to think of, but they're basically I mean they're not hurting for money at all, right? And they trust fund baby lodges. And it was like, why do you not have a gym or something for your members? Why do you not have pool tables and stuff? I mean, if you could afford to provide that kind of value for your members, why would you not give them reasons to come to lodge besides just sitting through a business meeting or something?
Well, I can see that, but at the same time, I would expect to raise dues for them too.
I don't disagree.
The cheapest gym membership you can get is $30 a month, and so if you're going to have gym equipment and stuff like that, then I would say at least bump it up $20 a month.
I'm just saying, my local gym, they give you a like a little fob, and they can activate it or deactivate it if you're paid up every month, and that's what gets you access to the building. You can give like that to all the new masters. Like, here's your fob to get you into the building. There's a gym, there's a pool table, the bar's open whatever night if you want to come have a drink or something, and just something like that. Yeah, it would have to be a little bit more expensive than $100 a year or something, but you get what you. I mean, it's just a matter of providing more value.
That was one of the things discussed. My junior warden came to the secretary's school with me, and well, he was going to come anyways. He has family in Houston. But when I announced it at lodge, I told everybody. I looked at every one of the officers. I said, if you want to know what your secretary is supposed to be doing, you need to be at this. And that's your responsibility to know what your secretary is supposed to be doing.
Hmm.
And he took it to heart, and he showed up. But we were talking throughout it, and they're talking about payment methods and all that kind of stuff during that, and how the reoccurring is fixing to be available in Grandview to where you can do the monthly charges automatically with people and
Nice.
things like that. And so it's just they're giving no reason for people not to do what they should be doing.
Hmm. I think the monthly charges is just smart. I think it's just a good direction to take things. So many subscription based programs are monthly now. It's almost a pay up front. That's great, but it breaks it down. It allows you to charge more, in my opinion, higher dues because they're not paying. They're not writing a $500 check.
That's exactly why they do it.
Yeah.
That's exactly why all the premium channels do that.
Hmm.
If they can sell you their premium channel for $5 a month, it seems like it's cheap,
Yep.
right? But that's more than paying for that channel as part of a bundle with Dish Network or DirecTV or whatever.
Hmm.
Or it's
Yeah, I'm just looking. So Dish is just their lowest price is almost $68 a month. So if your lodge charged $68 a month, That's $800 right there. That would help. That would help a lot of lodges.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
that was one of the arguments that I made with Guadalupe Lodge because it was at $120 a year. I said, guys, it comes to $10. That comes to $10 a meeting, basically. I said, we're talking about going to $15 a meeting. That's not a lot. Now, yeah, granted, it goes from 120 to 180, but that's, they're like, oh, it needs to be incremental. I was like, that's incremental.
That is incremental. What are you talking
Like, from what it should be,
about? Right.
yeah.
We had a similar discussion on several of the boards for my community for my city, and we recently raised our water bill more expensive because it hasn't been raised in like 30 years. And the argument it was that it should be incremental. Well, I agree, it probably should have been, but it hasn't been. So now we have to do something drastic to make it the difference. Just like, but also just like with a lodge, there's a process to doing something like that. And so the more incremental you try to make it, the more work you're putting on everybody too. If you wanted to raise dues $5 a year every year, that there's a process to that, especially if it's in your bylaws. And so it's I can see both arguments, but it's better just to do it. It's too late to do anything incrementally. It's if you wanted to do it incrementally, you should start that process 20, 30, maybe even longer years ago. Now it's time just to do something dramatic to get it where it needs to be.
Right. Now it's time to just catch up.
Yep.
So let's we can go incrementally from this point forward, but first we got to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, and everybody is still under this feeling that it's free masonry and not Freemasonry.
Yeah.
It's so
It's almost
it,
like free on, you know, with AC.
right.
It's
There's
not,
no
it's not
free on. Hell no, there is no
Right.
free on. Probably the most expensive thing is, especially when you have an older unit that you haven't taken care of in 30 years, and you've lost all your freon because it's never been maintained, and it has a leak. Now the coils are leaking from 50 million holes in the coils, and you lose all your freon. Yeah, that R12. Yeah, pay that out per pound and see. Yeah, if your lodge has an R12 system, all it'll take is one leak to make you be forced to increase to triple, even quadruple what they
So,
are today.
so we are currently having a debate because apparently wherever I go, I like to change bylaws and raise dues. And if the boofing from my Bassett is too distracting, just let me know. I don't know what she's going after, but anyway.
But we like hearing her.
So, so Victory Lodge, we're having a debate right now. Apparently, Victory Lodge has never had a separate rules and regulations. Rules and regulations. So we're talking about dues. Now, so far, the issue of raising them, that's not the issue. We've already kind of crossed that bridge. Dues are going to be raised, right? But my point is just like you were saying that it needs to be incremental. So we've had several different we've had several different debates on what how we should handle this. One idea was to um, actually automatically raise the dues based on the stated rate of inflation each year. So each year dues go incrementally up. In theory, I suppose they could go down if inflation went negative.
Which has
Rarely
never
happens,
happened.
but theoretically, it is possible. Probably not going to happen. So there's that. The other one, of course, is just to raise dues and just leave it at that, which is the straightforward one. The other one is to actually not state dues, as in the idea is that by the end of October, you have to vote on what the dues are going to be for the next year. And then that forces the lodge to basically look at your finances each year. And if you need to raise, if your dues are fine and you're covering everything, nothing has changed, great, you keep them the same. If they need to go up a little bit, then you can go ahead and go up. And you know, that one I actually ran by our the only guy I know that's ever served on the law committee at Grand Lodge, Robert Park. He thought it was a fantastic idea. Um, I ran it past some of the guys at the lodge, and I mean, there's some, there are some drawbacks. You could say, well, you could have one year where everybody decides that they're just not going to charge dues that year. I was like, well, yeah, I no, I get that. I said, uh, but or what happens if the lodge just simply doesn't vote on them? Then what happens? Do the dues just automatically just stay the same? Well, if that's the case, then you pretty much have just set the dues. So there's been kind of a going back and forth on what we do, because my point is, yeah, we could just raise dues and that's great for this year, but then 5, 10 years down the road, everybody's going to be looking around going, well, we got to raise dues. Well, we got to go up by so much. Well, now we got to go up by so much because we didn't raise dues, but you know what I mean? So I'm trying to figure out a way
You're
to
falling back into that same
exactly.
scenario
So
when
I'm
you,
trying to figure out a way to get ahead of it, to set the lodge up for the long term to where the dues stay up with, rising costs,
you know how
basically.
I would, you know how I would write it? I would write it in the bylaws that every year it shall be caused to happen that the lodge will form a committee as part of the audit, Form 71 audit committee, to have um, a budget committee.
Right.
And every year the lodge must present a budget, and dues will be measured according to the needs of the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But what I
because
mean, but I mean, those kinds of things oftentimes are put in there. So what happens if they just simply don't? It
if
says,
they don't if they
there's,
don't do the budget,
yeah. I mean,
if they don't do the budget, then they're breaking the bylaws, and you take a chance of losing your charter, because that's what the bylaws do.
yeah.
They set the rules for your those are the governing rules for your lodge,
I'd also
and
point
we
out.
have to
Wait,
have them
are you talking about? Are you talking about
as a
putting them in your
fraternity.
bylaws, or are you talking about putting them in your rules and regulations?
I would put them in the bylaws
Yeah.
because that's important.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have to set an amount in the bylaws,
Right.
but I would set it that a budget will be caused to happen each year for the benefit of the lodge to determine endowments and dues for the upcoming year, something of that nature.
You
And
also.
and you can put in there as well that the actual amount will be put in the rules and regulations. The Because I'm almost certain you have to have a set amount. I know you have to with the endowments, because we went through this.
Right.
There was a
Yeah.
lodge that wanted to do a percentage, and they said, "Oh no, you can't do percentage. It has to be a set amount."
Right.
So
And
I would
it,
cause it to be done, and then put the set amount in your rules.
yeah, and I've looked through. I haven't found any. The only thing he says, of course, of course, you have to pay your per capita. I mean, beyond, you have to do that. But I have not, and again, and Park did suggest I contact somebody on the jurisprudence committee to run it by them, make sure. But as far as what I have found, again, I'm not an expert, not a lawyer or anything like that, but from what I've seen so far, there's not anything that says you have to set a specific amount. But anyway, I mean, but yeah, like I said,
Now you've given me a project because I'm almost certain. So I definitely want to look that up because I don't want to tell the world something wrong. So
right.
I definitely am going to look that up myself, and I'll call some people on jurisprudence too because
Yeah.
I definitely want to know. I don't want to mislead our listeners.
Right. No, but I'm saying we're having this kind of back and forth. But
That's a great
part,
discussion though. You're
yeah.
having that conversation. That's
Well,
awesome.
yeah, that's what I was saying is that at least the current group of officers are willing to have the conversation to say, okay, let's not just look at it for this year. Yeah, we already decided we're going to raise dues. That's great for this year, and probably will work for the next few years, right? Because as far as we can tell, our expenses are not going to dramatically change for the next few years. We're able to cover our budget for everything, but that we are trying to think long term and not just, yeah, let's get this done for this year and then, we can kind of move on with the rest of the stuff we're doing. So anyway,
Can y'all hear me? Is my mic working?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I
Yes.
turned it down and I thought maybe y'all couldn't hear me. Keep in mind that there's also,
We were just ignoring you.
oh, well, I didn't know if it was that or my mic. And me and Dennis talked about this a few months ago. It's kind of a gray area if you say we're going to vote to change it with inflation because you can't set dues for a set amount of time. If that makes sense. You can't say we're just going to raise it to 200 for a year and then vote to change it again. So it's kind of a gray area if you say, hey, we're just going to. I mean, if you just have like a gentleman's agreement, like, hey, every year we're going to reevaluate this based off inflation, that's probably probably fine. But if you put it somewhere in writing, hey, every year, whatever inflation is, we're going to change our dues to that. You're kind of falling into that, I think. Which
I think if you're realistic on your budget, then you are taking inflation into account, and so you don't. It kind of washes it with the wording.
could be possible.
But you're right. I mean, it's almost impossible to do it based off of something like that. That's non-tangible, like the inflation that's caused by so many other factors.
I mean, really, if you want to base it off inflation, what you need to do is find your Bennett book and go back to like 1900, and then say, okay, we're going to base off inflation.
Yeah, why don't you start
then.
there?
well,
Yes.
there is, the Department of Labor does actually put out an official inflation rate every year, and on January 1st. And that's kind of the idea that I had come up with, is that whatever the rate of inflation was stated on January 1st, then the dues have to at least go up by that much. And so anyway, I don't know.
How long has it been since y'all raised dues? I know that most of my lodges, it's been quite some time.
No, for Victory Lodge, it hasn't actually been that long. But keep in mind, we also just rent the lodge room at the shrine. So we're not talking about like, we don't have electricity and water. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's a pretty straightforward. I think it was only maybe, well, they raised dues while I was when I first became a master mason. So it's only been about 5 years. So it hasn't been
See,
that
I
long.
think that's too long. So I would say that would be your first starting point is inflation from that point, and then plus some. I would put a little bit of extra because they're not going to do it again for another several years unless you put it in the bylaws.
Yeah, and I mean we're talking about. I wouldn't say it was a substantial. I would say the dues are going to go up by 30%.
Yeah, I was
Right.
just running through the
And
calculator.
so,
So
yeah.
if you last
But keep in mind,
updated,
our expenses are very, very low. So it's not like,
I know, but are you putting any money?
yeah. Are you putting, wait, say that again? Are you putting what?
Are y'all putting any money away? Like,
Yes, we have an investment account. Yes. That we put, yes.
It's good.
Yeah. So,
Just just for perspective, if you last updated your dues like 5 years ago, say 2019, I just ran it through a inflation calculator, just based off 200, which is what most of my lodges are. That's almost $50. That's almost, it's a 23% increase. It's almost 25% increase over just 5 years.
yeah. Like I said,
That's
ours are
substantial.
going up 30%. So, I mean, we're, yeah, I mean, we did. We really took a realistic look at what they need to be, and stuff. But like I said, I'm trying to think five,
long term, yeah.
yeah, long term down the road. I don't know. I don't know. I guess, like I said, my reputation is generally too high right now. So I was trying to bring it down a little bit, make sure,
Those are rookie numbers. You got to pump those
keep,
numbers up, man.
keep that ego in check, Don't have too many people like me.
So, Jason, you were talking about your lodge didn't have like a separate set of rules and regulations, but you do have bylaws.
Yes.
Um, my lodge is the same way. I think we've got rules and regulations, but nobody knows where they are. And I have a project I want to do this year of electronically copying all of our minutes for, starting like the most recent and working our way back and trying to build some rules and regulations off of that, uh, because I don't know what they are. I don't know what they voted on 5 years ago. Um, so I think it's important to put together like a book that the next master and wardens get, and then they hand it to the next, and then so on and so forth.
And it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact, you're supposed to give them to the Grand Lodge. So I would contact Grand Lodge and ask them what they have on your lodge, because
Okay.
whatever they have is officially what you have as your bylaws, rules, and regulations.
I would
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
that is true.
I would
Yeah.
also say
because
whatever y'all agree on, ultimately, whether you find your existing ones or vote on new ones, print them out and have them put on the wall somewhere. Just like
Yeah.
a classroom. If I have rules but they're not displayed, what's the point? And everyone should get a copy also.
yeah, we
Especially-
have tons of copies.
Yeah, I mean, you there's a point where you say you will, it's only fitting you have a copy of your own, but it should also be there on the wall, just as a reminder to everybody.
Well, every Master Mason is supposed to get a copy of the bylaws, rules, and regulations when they become a Master Mason.
Yep.
That's Grand Lodge law, and so you should have received those, even though you didn't. I get that. In a lot of lodges, they don't do that, but you should have received them. And to the point I was making earlier is that the only thing that matters with Grand Lodge is what Grand Lodge has on file. That's what was submitted to them, and that's the only ruling document for your lodge at this time until you update that.
Yeah.
So you might be spinning your wheels trying to find it in the minutes in order to appease people. Just say, hey, this is what Grand Lodge has, and this is what's binding to us, and this is where we start. Now let's form a committee and start putting these items to task and seeing where we stand today, if it matches our culture, and go from there. But yeah, Jason is right in doing the Form 23 and then having your own rules and regulations. It'll make that process a lot easier for you in the future too. The Form 23 is a fill in the blank, and it's got all the basic things that are required by Grand Lodge for you to account for. And so you fill out the Form 23, and then everything else goes into rules and regulations. And then that way you're square for Grand Lodge. And that was all pre-approved by jurisprudence and civil law. And the reason why they did that was because before being that it's a legal document, you should have had an attorney draw this up for you to submit to Grand Lodge. and then their attorneys would look over it, make sure that it's legitimate. And so these bylaws, rules, and regulations weren't simple at all. And some lodges had some really crazy ones, and some lodges had some very basic ones that were created from the beginning of, Texas Freemasonry. So they kind of made it to where it would be easier for everybody to get uniform, and then the rules and regulations cover your culture.
Yeah, most of your grand entities now have their approved standard set because, yeah, I mean, the bylaws they can come into play if you start getting into legal issues, and they want to look at your bylaws, and if you have gone rogue, created your own set of bylaws that somehow got passed, but
Don't reflect
they were
yeah,
violating your Grand Lodge's laws and stuff like that. They get completely invalidated, and all sorts of weird things can start happening. So, yeah, if you're gonna bylaws, by and large, the groups that I've been a part of is basically like just stick with the standard. If you want to do some extra things, that's a separate document that you know create yourself, rules and regulations. Or they're calling it something else. Somebody said they're going to start calling it something else now, or standing operating procedures or something. I don't.
that it's
It doesn't matter.
yeah,
Whatever
you're right. People are saying different things, and it's just ignorant that we have to contemplate those things. What should we call it?
Right.
The rest of the world calls it bylaws, rules, and regulations.
Yeah.
Why we have to go and call it standard operating procedures? I guess it's because, somebody is in an executive world that thinks that there has to be standard operating procedures as well. But
I
generally,
I think that's an innovation. Can't do that.
exactly,
We don't have those.
exactly. Well, and that's the thing, is that really that innovation is SOPs are
POSs.
are more for
Point of
SOPs
sales.
are more for a corporation for employees. They're standard operating procedures for employees. Bylaws, rules, and regulations are the governing documents of that corporation.
Yeah.
The standard operating procedures are just basically what the employees can and cannot do throughout the day. They're two different things, and I don't know why somebody is trying to make use the wrong interpretation for what those are.
Well, we never
But-
agree to follow the standard operating procedures of our lodge. If you know what I'm talking about, like that's not standard operating procedures. Spoiler, isn't in the ritual anywhere, right? So,
Right.
just saying. I guess that's why so many people don't follow the rules and regulations of the lodge, because we have SOPs.
Because we don't have them.
We don't have them where they have SOPs.
We got a bunch of SOBs. SOPs.
We do.
Son of a brother.
Son
That's
of a
what
brother.
we got. Son
I'm
of a
gonna-
brother.
I'm going to
Salty old
create an
brothers.
SOP to create a rules and regulations document.
There you go.
That's exactly right.
Modern problems require modern solutions. Good job.
Yes. That's interesting. That's one of the things that we were talking about, though, at the secretary's. It wasn't part of the secretary's bill, but what the junior warden and I were talking about. We were talking about it's time. We need to take a close look at dues, and we need to raise them, and not just for raising sake, but just because they're artificially low, because we do have a large investment account, and people tend to say, "Oh, we've got plenty of money." Well, we do until we don't, and so it's not our job to suck the teat off that cow, right? It's our job to keep feeding that cow to give it more milk.
Well, I'm going to be unpopular here, and this is coming from someone who's by no means rich, but maybe we we need to stop trying to say, in my opinion, I'm not trying to be disagreeable. We need to stop saying we're just doing it for the sake of doing it, right? Because, yeah, it kind of is also for the sake of doing it. Because when things are cheap, you don't attract the right kind of people, in my opinion. There's no buy-in because they didn't spend much money on it, and anyone who has a casual interest can probably drop $50, $100. Hell, if they were in the position, they could probably drop $200, and that's still low enough just to have a casual interest, and then decide, yeah, this wasn't worth my time, and just walk away and never. Granted, we're probably also talking about degree fees at this point, but they might give it a year after they turn the masters and say, okay, this isn't worth it. All around the board, especially since we're talking about making it more accessible by having monthly fees instead of annual fees in many lodges. Low barrier to entry and no barrier to exit. I agree. That's what it is. It's a low barrier to entry. So we should reevaluate our degree fees. Yeah, and sure, we can say, well, this costs X amount. This costs X amount. We want to be sure we have a good dinner. That probably costs X amount. Yada yada yada. And you could on paper justify a higher degree fee. You could even say, hey, we're just going to lump them all into EA and make the other two cheaper and make them pay up front, and still justify it that way. But ultimately, you also want to look at just the barrier to entry factor. Is this still cheap? You can even look at, and I said this earlier, and we beat this horse how many times? You could look at your old degree fees, run it through the inflation calculator. It is still going to it's going to dwarf anything you come up with just based off actual numbers and actual cost. Why? Why was this I can't talk. Why was this so much more expensive for them? Because sure, I'm sure they gave people things. I'm sure they gave people stuff during the degrees and things like that. But it wasn't just that. And it wasn't just about justifying the cost. It was also about setting a barrier to entry to keep casual interest from joining the fraternity. And that applies to your degree fees too.
I think a lot of people today have that mentality. We're living in a Amazon and Walmart generation, right? I mean, that's what even I grew up on that. Walmart came around when I was 16, I guess. That was one of my first jobs was at Walmart when they first came out. And, it was stack 'em deep, sell 'em cheap. And it was the era of the blue light special for Kmart. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happened is we became the blue light special instead of being just special light. Mm-hmm. And we need to get back to where we're supposed to be. And I'm sorry if it offends people, and I'm sorry if it prices people out of the equation, but I don't care what it costs me to do this. When I work for my money too. I'm not a trust fund baby, and I'm not wealthy beyond the point that I don't have to get up and work every day. So I work hard for it too, and I'm saying I'm willing to pay whatever it takes for me to have this membership in the same fraternity that my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, and so on mm-hmm. were a member of. I'm even more interested in supporting the fraternity that has shared with me so much more light in this life than any other source in my lifetime. Well, this fraternity has shared so much insight that no other source has shared with me in my entire life.
It's easy to get defensive and adopt a victim mentality. That's what a lot of people do. However, my granddad joined like 70 years ago, and it was expensive, and he was by no means rich. And he died by no means rich. So my point is, if you look at these lodges, go to like the golden age if you want to, or even before that, not everyone that joined was rich, but they knew Freemasonry was important and they budgeted for it. And I think that's what's really key here. It was important enough to them to say, hey, maybe we won't eat out this month, or maybe I won't buy these cigars this month, or maybe I'll just I don't know, not get a candy bar or something, and just let it build up. That way, I can afford to pay my dues because it was that important.
Hey, I saved money last year by not buying a bunch of Grandmaster stuff.
Hey, those are for sale now.
Dennis.
I know that was so bad.
Yeah, they just put it all up after the election. I don't know why.
Yep, I know. That's anyways. Anyways, I digress. But you're right, though. I mean, we spend money on what we want to spend money on. We've said it in the past. It's been quite a long time ago. Yeah, one of them saying he would have been impressed if I could have said that without a laugh.
Yeah.
I felt bad immediately after I said it. That's why I laughed. That was a nervous
You
laugh
didn't
because
feel bad.
you're right.
You felt worried. You feel bad about it a lot. I was like, crap, should I have said that? Just laugh it
No,
off.
I never feel bad about what I say. Um, but the reality is, and we've said it, you know, a long time ago, is that you want to see the way to a man's heart. Look at his checkbook. See where he spends his money. You know what he cares about. You see some men that budget all the time and they spend money on certain amounts of money. They make sure that there's enough money for their kids, their wife, the food, the house bills, et cetera, et cetera. And then you see some people that don't. They just take it all in and just frantically pay it out however they can to make ends meet. Hopefully, they have a lot of faith that somehow it's going to all work out if they keep chasing that buck. And that's what happens is you end up being somebody who chases the buck. And so then all your value becomes the buck. So if the lodge, wants to increase dues because it's a higher price, it increased because of the buck, and it's still hard for you to manage that buck. So it's scary to you to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say that because I've been there. I know that. I have lost more money than most people will make in a lifetime. I can honestly say that in all sincerity, more than most people will make in a lifetime, because I didn't know how to do those things. I finally figured it out. Now I'm on a better track, and now I can afford all the things I want in Freemasonry.
I like it, man.
But budgeting is the most important thing to being successful in life and in life.
Yeah, I agree.
Because today is all about it. And so where we spend our money matters.
And the ability to charge monthly instead of annually, that will help with the budgeting. Not to diminish the importance of being able to budget, because that is an important life skill. But to say that you can't afford something in Freemasonry when we have the option to it's like eating an elephant, right? Instead of having to take it all in one bite at the end of the year. Excuse me, that snuck up on me. You take little nibbles every month throughout the year. Sorry, I inhaled some spit. No, hold a second. Could you say that teaching men to budget better is teaching them to be better men? And teaching them to be wiser men. I've known some
It's teaching them to be better men, in my opinion. I believe it is. I believe it is.
Scrooge was really good at budgeting. I don't think he was a good man, but it makes them more financially wise, I guess. But it's definitely a. I would argue that budgeting falls under arithmetic as far as your liberal arts goes. So it's a good way to study.
I'm just trying to poke that bear a little bit, Justin. We always take good men and make them better. Let's make it better in that way too.
I wouldn't I wouldn't say that Scrooge was a bad man. He was running a business. It's not his job to show charity to everybody, to all his employees. That person agreed to work for that amount of money.
Yes, yes.
So you can't say that he was a bad man just because somebody made a folk tale over how pitiful this guy was and how all the problems he had in life.
That's good.
We all have problems.
He didn't
We all
force
have
those
struggles.
children to work in those mines. They volunteered. You just paid them out with good budgeting. I agree. I agree. By the way, the old English fun fact isn't. It's actually not better. It's actually buttermen. It was the idea of whipping them into shape. So it's just one of those weird old English translations that we talk about sometimes. It's
You just shat on our conversation with your English knowledge. I sometimes wonder about your wisdom, Justin. Golly.
I'm like a crazy Yoda. Speaking of crazy Yodas, here comes Kadeem, of all people.
Nice.
What's up, Kadeem?
How's it going, guys?
Better now. I hadn't heard your voice in like 2 months.
I know
Kadeem,
it's been a while.
it's
Glad
been
to
a
see you,
very
my
while.
brother.
It is good to see y'all.
I was going to talk about something tonight that I witnessed, and I kind of connected some dots. I was at an event, and the guys from this lodge, you go listen to it, like, oh, he's talking about my lodge again. But I was at an event, and I was walking. It's like a pretty. It was around a like a city square, and there was tents and vendors and everything. I mean, it was pretty big. It was pretty cool. There's probably like 100 vendors there
We have
Yeah.
that every month in Goliad.
every month.
Market
Oh, this
days.
was like it's like an annual
Yeah.
thing here. But one of the brothers of a lodge walked by the tent. They were selling like corn in a cup or some crap, whatever. But they were selling corn in a cup, and he walks by, and they're like, "Hey, when you gonna come do a shift?" He's like, "I'm not gonna do a shift. That's not the Freemasonry I want, right?" And they proceeded to try and like guilt him, and I thought about this. If you want to drive people away from your lodge, and we talk about this, what you do is you say you guilt them for not having the same expectations out of Freemasonry as you, right? And we've talked about the importance of having a well-rounded lodge, right? Where you have people, okay, if you want to do that, that's fine. You can get the other guys that want to do that, and we'll support you, right? You can do that if you put it together, be it education, fundraising, esoteric stuff, whatever. I think we talked about the servant leadership approach, where okay, if you want to do that, you put it together, and we can have that. But what you should never do is say, well, you don't care about education, so everything when are you going to do your education presentation? Why don't you do an educational presentation? Hey, when are you going to learn the lines for the junior warden? Why don't you do that? What's the
Yeah,
issue?
you just don't care if you don't know the the Master Mason's lecture. You just don't care.
Yeah, you just don't care about the fraternity if you're not going to learn the lecture. Everyone has to learn
Yeah.
the lecture. It's the same thing. Or when are you going to come to our booth and volunteer? I mean, that's really important. Just because you think that's important, fundraising, doesn't mean this other guy thinks is important. He may think it needs to come out of the dues, or he may think there needs to be another approach. But as soon as you start shaming and guilting people for not seeing Freemasonry the same way you do, that's when people stop coming to lodge. That's when your lodge starts dying.
Yeah.
And furthermore, the people that do stick around see that kind of behavior and think that's acceptable, and they do that too.
Yeah, I ran into a situation this last week when we were on the show. We were talking about it at the very beginning about that point that I made on I can't even remember what it was now, but I had basically made it a play on words to see who would catch the underlying message. And a member of my lodge contacted me and basically shamed me for doing that, saying that I was trying to create dissension within the fraternity. And it's like, dude, just because you have a different opinion doesn't mean that I'm a bad guy. Just because you view things differently than I do doesn't mean that I am not a good Mason. And so that's damaged our relationship. He was a friend, and he made that statement, and I messaged him back and said, "Hey, let's talk," and asked him if he had time for a call. Nothing,
Wow.
nothing all week. It's like, dude, that's not acceptable to me.
No. Is there a suit
It's
behind
just
you
not
on
acceptable.
the wall? Is there a suit behind you somewhere?
Yes.
Because it just popped up like in your green screen when you moved your head. I saw this torso just floating behind you. I was like, holy crap.
that's coming to get me.
Nice.
Well,
Actually, that's my KSA.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay.
That's my Prince Charlie.
Okay.
I think, and I know I'm going to get eye rolls at this, but that was one of the bigger arguments I used to have when I used to be heavily involved with the Elks. Yeah, there you go. See, but the thing was, I mean, you had you know you had guys that were heavily involved in the charity work. You had guys that were heavily involved, uh, believe it or not, in the ritual, and they really enjoyed that part of it. And then you had guys that did nothing but they joined the Elks either for the RV parking because they traveled, so they went to all the different RV parks and all the different Elks lodges around the United States, or they were bar flies. Like they joined the Elks because they liked coming to the lounge and they had like going to having free drink or not free, but you know, cheap drinks, right? And I had one exalted ruler that would sit there and just be like, they're just doing nothing. They're just sitting there and they're not contributing. They're just sitting there drinking and stuff like that. And I was like, hold on. First off, we're not a charity. I said, charity, just like the Masons, charity is one thing that we do, but we're not a charity and we're not one particular thing. I said, these guys joined and they're still spending their money here. They're paying their dues. They're, so long as they're not getting in our way, like leave them alone. Like
Yeah,
let them
their
enjoy
patronage is helping keep that bar there.
exactly. How do you think we're paying for our light bill? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're upset they're buying cheap drinks and just using your RV park and stuff, I mean, who sets the prices of your drinks and everything? Right? I mean, it's like, yeah, don't complain if at least they're showing up for one. At least they're there. They might not be for a meeting or something, but
right.
at least they're there. I mean, dang
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, yeah, if you are like me, I mean, I was kind of heavily involved in everything, but I mean, one of my bigger things was a community events and bigger charity events. And yeah, it was frustrating to not get, the volunteers that you need and, not feel like you're getting the support for that specific thing. But to go out and then just start shaming others because they're not supporting what you think is important, it's like, no, that's not the approach. Let them support as they support. Don't try to make them you.
hmm
You know, let them let them enjoy the reason they joined the Elks,
Yeah.
and they'll keep coming and they'll keep spending their money. So anyway.
Well, the brothers that like the fundraising, right? Like you may not like them now, but when it comes time to give a scholarship or something like that, and you have the money in the bank account for it, it makes your life easier. Like we can give money. You might not think education is important, but when someone gives a really great presentation that really makes you reflect on things, or really brings in a lot of people because he's a big speaker, you might be glad that suddenly you had those education guys. You might not care about the ritual, but when you have a new Mason and you have a really good degree, and the guy's like almost brought the tears from this life changing moment, you'll be glad that you have that tea in there. And so just because it's not your cup of tea doesn't mean that it's the wrong cup of tea if someone else enjoys it. I think that's the beauty. Like Freemasonry brings people from all. We talk about how we bring people from all walks of life, but then when they're in our lodge, we expect them just to shoehorn into one approach to Freemasonry, and that you can't do that. You can't brag about bringing in all these different types of people if you're going to shame them for having a different outlook on how their Freemasonry should look. Now there are some things that I think are like I wouldn't say landmarks, but they're like hey, we follow Grand Lodge law. Hey, these are our bylaws. Hey, we need to be sure our dues are enough to cover this. There are some things like hey, we have to be steadfast on. But as far as what you get out of your Freemasonry as an individual, it's their own journey. Everybody's on their own journey, and once you start shaming them from being on that trail instead of the trail you're on, they'll just disappear and you'll never see them again.
I think that the big thing that I've heard that really kind of irritates me is, okay, I get it. Maybe Masonic esoteric education is not your thing. You don't particularly enjoy it. But I have heard of those in lodges actively trying to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a problem. Okay, I get it. You don't enjoy this. Maybe fine. You know what? For the next 20 or 30 minutes, tune out, and whatever. But I have heard of some lodges that have guys in there that because they don't see it as important or they don't agree with it, that they will actively work to put a stop to it. And I think that's a problem.
You know what's interesting is that I think I know which lodge you're talking about, and that lodge has actively requested that Texas Lodge of Research meet in their lodge next year. And it's like, really?
Mm.
And this is the lodge that doesn't. Oh yeah, you know exactly why they want them, and it's not just that, not just this.
And you know who I'm talking about too.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's up, Daniel?
I was going to say, I think these are the lodges we're going to see that have to merge, that have to go in and become part of somebody else's lodge, because they're going to naturally atrophy out.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to naturally die off. It might not be quick. It's going to be a slow, painful death. They're not going to have enough money. They're going to go and they're going to go somewhere else. And they're going to take that mentality with them. And those lodges they merge with are going to have to be strong. And be like, no, this is our culture of our lodge. And I'm in the Dallas area, so I'm really lucky. It's stone's throw. There's like 5 or 6 lodges around me. And it'd be easier to hey, I want to withdraw my membership from this one. I want to go over to this one. That doesn't solve the problem, though, right? That doesn't fix the problem. And I think that's ultimately what we're all here for, right? Is like, hey, we want to make this better. We want to make it be better understanding of what Freemasonry is, and that we can respect and share with those other brothers, right? And hopefully change the tide, influence them for the better, and say, hey, this is where we need to go. This is what we need to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not interested in business meetings, but I'll come to lodge and I'll sit through them patiently. I'm not interested in fundraising, but if the worshipful master wants to allow a committee of the whole to have a whole discussion about fundraising for 20 minutes, I'll sit there to a point before I leave, but I'm not going to sit there and like, this is stupid, fundraising stupid, we should just stop it all together, right? Because that's really more of a, if you're having a meeting like that, it's kind of an extreme example, but my point is, just because people are talking about and doing things in the lodge that, it's not about things that are illegal. I'm talking about things I just don't particularly enjoy out of Freemasonry. Doesn't mean I do everything I can to stop it from happening. Right? And just because you don't like education, you know what? If you find value in Freemasonry somewhere else, that's fine. but don't stop other people from from doing sorry, I saw I saw that comment and I just totally lost track of. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. But my point is made. I think just because you're talking about something I don't enjoy doesn't mean I stand up or do anything to actively prevent it from happening. And likewise, nor should you.
Yeah, that's and I feel the same way, and I will speak against things that I don't um, like taking money from the public. But
Well, that falls under things that we definitely should not be doing. But that's
well, that's my opinion, and I'll actively speak on it, and I'm not going to show up to do it. I'm just not going to do it anymore. I just feel bad about it. It doesn't make me feel good about myself, and so I'm just not going to do that. And if somebody else wants to do that, that's fine. I don't. I'm not going to shame them either, but I will tell them my reasoning for not doing it. But I think that's the biggest thing that bothers me when in this fraternity, everyone that joins knows that the whole idea behind, or everyone should know if they're joining the fraternity, the whole idea behind this thing was freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all these freedoms. And then we come into it and we have to be one particular brand of Freemasonry. And that is intolerable in my opinion. And I am one of those that will debate all day long my point, because I'm going to try to change your mind. But if you help me change my mind, I can be swayed, but it has to be compelling. But I'm not going to shame somebody because they believe a certain way. Not anymore.
I would also argue, like, if you have, I know some lodges that they are like gung ho, like we do fundraising and that's our thing. More power to you. But if someone that was interested in education came across and joined, and I'm getting somewhere with this, and joined and found out that, hey, this doesn't offer anything what I'm looking for, he might not even get shamed, but he might just get bored out of his mind because it's not what he's looking for. My point is, if you want to be, hey, we're an education lodge, we bring speakers from all over the state every time we meet, and that is our focus. We have a great meal, great education, yada yada yada. We don't do fundraising, we don't do anything else. That more power to you. But be sure when you have people that are expressing interest in joining, that is what you're communicating to them. Be sure that is what they know. Because if they're like, hey, I really just want to do fundraising and help out my community, there's two options. You say, oh, we can get a new potential member and that's money. Or, hey, let's actually educate this guy on what this lodge does and say, hey, if you really want to do that, you might look at this lodge. Because if you don't want to be extremely well-rounded, that's your call. But definitely, it goes back to what we're saying. Definitely, you're not going to shame these people for looking for something else, for one. And secondly, you're educating these guys on what you actually do. And you might say, look, this lodge, there's a variety of Freemasonry. This lodge focuses on education or excellence in our ritual or something like that. That lodge has more of what you're looking for. It's a regular lodge. There's nothing wrong with it. But you definitely don't say, well, that's not Freemasonry and you shouldn't join us if that's what you want, because we don't fundraise at all. We don't think that's Freemasonry or something like that.
We would be much better off if we we would be much better off if we were doing that. If we were taking an honest evaluation of the prospects that are coming to our doors, mm-hmm. and helping them find what they're looking for. That's one of the things that I'm most proud about our show, is that that's what we do. Is when people come to us, we try to get them in the right direction that they're looking to go.
Yeah.
And so I absolutely agree with you 100%.
Yeah. If I would have known that I didn't have to join the lodge near where I live, I would have, explored around. I didn't know. I'm really kind of one of the only ones like me in my lodge. I'm a little bit different than all of them, and it kind of rubs them the wrong way sometimes.
Hmm.
The way I am.
And what's wild is there are plenty of lodges within, I'd say close by, but I'm out in the middle of nowhere, so everything's close by to me, right? There's several lodges around your area that would probably offer exactly what you thought you were getting. But I also think you're doing great things. And so I think there's definitely a lesson to be learned. I don't know what that is, but there's definitely a lesson to be learned from that also. Wherein, if you're not, I guess that is, if you're not finding what you're looking for, be that change.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't finding it, and by listening to what you guys are teaching, um, I'm like bringing that to my lodge. I'm like, this is masonry. This is what I thought it was going to be whenever I came in here, and it's not that.
Because
It's not really happening very much around me either. So it's something
well,
new.
you have to understand that everything is cyclical, right? Lives go through cycles, and so do lodges. And just because I say don't shame people, because most people, if they feel shamed, they're gonna feel unwelcomed, and they'll just, okay, this is what I was thinking. But there's some people that they're willing to still push for new ideas, regardless of what people say, and you're one of those people. And my point is, just because a lodge is a certain way, doesn't mean it can't change over time. In fact, it will change over time.
Yeah,
But if you don't direct where that change goes, what's the saying? If you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing, right? And there's a whole lot of lodges that really stand for nothing. And really, even if you say we're going to be a well-rounded lodge, that's still standing for something. But so many lodges don't even do that. You got 20 different members that if you asked them what the mission of the lodge was, or what the goal of the lodge was, or what you're there to do, you'll get 20 different answers. Would really, that should not be the case. Everyone that comes to that lodge should say, "Hey, we're about this, or we're about that." And so what you're doing is gently directing the lodge towards something. And there's going to be people resisting. Like if you have a whole bunch of horses out in the middle of like Wyoming that are wild, you want if you want to herd them towards a direction, they've never been that way. They've always been wild and free until whatever. It's going to take some time to get them
They're
tamed.
called
And
Mustangs.
it's going to take some time. We're not talking about cars, Dennis. It's going to take some time to get them directed and herded. Wild horses. It's going to take some time. My point.
I
Thank you,
think there's a
Dennis.
song about that, Justin.
Mustangs.
Wild, wild horses. Couldn't keep me away.
Yeah.
I know that song. He doesn't know that song. He's
Oh,
too young.
I've heard that song. I don't remember who sings it, but I've heard it before.
On your dad's radio?
Yeah, he had an 8-track. He was on his 8-track
We
player.
had an 8-track, man. Buddy Holly all day long. 8-track. That was awesome. Those were
Nice.
good times.
No, I had Ray Stevens. That was about the extent of my 8-track songs.
Nice.
This would be a fantastic subject for presentations around the state. Some lodges are just social civic clubs with almost no interest in education of any kind. And again, like if you have a lodge and that's all they are, if they're communicating that, so many lodges get excited as soon as anyone expresses any kind of interest, that they're not taking a step back and say, okay, is this person actually a fit for our lodge? And we talk about being well-rounded and everything like that. But if you have a lodge and there's just a, hey, we're just social, this is just a social organization. I don't really know how much Freemasonry is happening there, but you still need to just communicate. I'm not talking about your specific lodges, I'm just saying. But you really just need to be able to communicate, hey, this is really what we focus on. And if you want to learn how to do the ritual really well, there's a lodge that they meet every week and they have like 2 or 3 district instructors there that know the work. Or you could say, hey, we're going to really focus on education. You need to go there. And I'm not saying, go ahead.
I would even say that it's okay at this point in time as a first step. It's okay to say we don't have this particular culture, that we're exploring options at this time to see what's our fit, what we really enjoy doing as a collective, because that's ultimately what the goal is as a servant leader, is to serve the collective. You should always have that at your in your mind, and at heart when you're leading. So to be a leader, and you don't have to necessarily say this is our chart, this is our course, this is our chart of our path. You can honestly tell your brothers, look, we don't really have a defined culture. We don't really have a defined um, reason for being here every month besides reading the minutes. Why don't we come up with something? And so we try this and we try that. Let's see what sticks. Let's see what we enjoy doing. Let's see what others enjoy coming and visiting us, uh, enjoy doing the most. You know, if you have this fish fry and you get 10 people show up, and you have this speaking event with 50 people show up, which one do you want to continue doing? I mean, that's ultimately, if you're trying to get people to show up to create some energy and synergy within your lodge, then you know you the first things first, you got to try and see what that's going to be, what that's going to look like with you, and where you're going to be successful in doing these things. A lot of times we have a lodge that's close by that's already doing the big fish fries. And so why would we want to do a fish fry if this other lodge is successful at fish fries? That's one of the things that just drives me nuts in my area sometimes, is that you got a guy that really fries fish really good. And this lodge is known for doing a fish fry every year. And now all of a sudden this lodge wants to do it also because they think they're going to be able to do it as well, but they're pulling from the same people. They're selling tickets to the same people just for a different lodge. And why would you want to do that if if you have an opportunity to try something different that may draw people as well? I don't know. Call me silly.
Well, and Dennis, I think you just hit it on the head, right? Like if you got two or three lodges, let's say in 30 minutes of each other, and all you're doing is soliciting those same lodges every single time you do something, and you're trying to replicate somebody else's success instead of being original, instead of saying this might be a little difficult, let's take it a year, let's do this two or three times and see if it's really successful. Because that first
Yeah.
time you do it, you might get 10 people at the fish fry.
Right.
Okay, well, let's try it again and see if it's the same 10 people who show up. And did we do anything different in our marketing? Did we do anything different in our communication out? Did I even communicate it out? There's some things that happen. You're like, oh, that happened last week. Oh, I didn't even know that was happening. Or, oh, that's happening this Saturday. I don't even know that's happening. But when there's other things where people put it out there, they put it out early, they communicate well. Those events are well attended. I think you
Yes.
saw that in Roy City with Brother Hoff put together with that education, right? Communicated early, communicated often. People came out to it, and I think that's something. Would it be done again? Maybe you even get a better turnout, right? Again, that's a lot of effort on his part to get speakers there, to
Hopefully,
get people there.
well,
But-
hopefully the members, even the ones that weren't there, hopefully they saw the value once they realized how many people showed up.
Yeah,
Hopefully they realized that value. I mean, if they didn't, then that's okay. If they want to do something different, then man, try different things. But that was a great success, and it was undeniable that it was a great success. And so hopefully they will want to help out a little bit more next time.
I think a lot
yeah.
of this.
But I mean, if all you're doing is a fish fry, and you go, hey, the lodge down the street did a fish fry. Let's do a fish fry because they were successful. That's it's not. I'm all for like copying somebody else's success, but does that make you original and successful, or does that just make you go, hey, I'm just a copy of a clone of that, and all I'm doing is inviting those guys from down the street, so I'm just really just pulling from the same crowd. It doesn't. Yeah. Eventually, they're gonna get tired of it. They're gonna get tired of that fish fry. They're gonna get tired of all that.
That's one of the things. that's one of the reasons I'm so against fundraisers is because we have so few people in my area and everybody has a fundraiser for something. And I don't want my daughter going around 10 times a year asking people for money. I don't want her doing that. She gets one fundraiser a year. And she does well. She always does. They people love my daughter. They love to buy stuff from her. But I'm not gonna allow her to do fundraisers all around town all throughout the year because I don't want her to think that's okay to just keep asking everybody else to pay for the stuff that she does.
A lot of
I will pay for it. I will pay for it. That's my job is
Yeah,
to pay
as far
for
as
her
money.
stuff.
This all really ties back to having a mission statement for your lodge, saying this is what we are about. And you could say, hey, you could be intentional about being a well-rounded lodge, or you could be intentional about any of the other types of lodges we talked about. But you have that in your mission statement. This is what we're about, and you're transparent about that. And everyone that comes in that door knows what your lodge is about. Now, the mission statement could change, just like the direction of a lodge. They have like a Elks Lodge / Masonic Lodge combo going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, our idea of getting out in the community is walk around with our hand out to ask for money. I like the idea from that podcast. I can't remember which one it was, but the one Dennis and I, where us getting out in the community is our ability to simply contribute to the community if somebody asks us.
Yeah.
That would
Well,
be
that's
so huge.
yeah, that's why when Josh, and I wonder where he is. I need to check on him. That's why when Josh wanted to do the backpack thing, man, I was all for it, and I immediately stood up and made the motion for the lodge to just support the community,
Yeah, like the tooth
not
program.
ask
whatever.
anybody for money, just
Yeah,
write a check
just
and make it happen.
contributing to the community in some way.
Yeah,
But because,
And
like you said, like you hinted at, like he said, if I'm turning around asking the community for money, and then I take that money and go do something with it, talking about how great my organization is,
yeah,
I'm just redistributing other people's money. I'm just redistributing
Yeah.
funds, and there's nothing honest about that.
yeah. That just sounds like Sheriff of Nottingham to me.
Hmm.
It is what it is. That's what it sounds like to me.
Good point.
Another oh, never mind. Well, no, actually not never mind. There's other opportunities that we have as well that don't cost anything. We have the Take Time to Read program that through Grand Lodge, that you go to a school and you just read a book to the kindergarten kids
Mhm.
or the first graders or whatever. We also have the Fantastic Teeth program,
Yep.
to where you can go and take this stuff and support the local school with support the local health, the local nurse, and teach hygiene, help teach hygiene. You know, there's opportunities we have.
Fantastic teeth.
Yeah, there's opportunities we have to support our communities without doing anything special. Why don't we make it a habit of our lodge being the one that gets the blood drive going for the local hospital?
Mhm.
You know, have an event that supports the blood drive, to where we give a pancake breakfast to anybody that comes and gives blood. You know, you're marketing yourself if you want to market yourself, and you're doing something good for the community.
Or
But
around,
you're not asking them for money.
around the holidays, you can do you can buy
Fry
gifts.
some turkeys.
You can buy gifts for children in need.
The angel tree, yep.
Yeah, you can make. Yeah, you can, like. Oh, you're right. Like you can do meals for like first responders. You can do meals for people in need, like homebound people around Thanksgiving and stuff like that. There's
That's
all
a big one.
Oh, it is. Same thing like veterans. There's some veterans that can't get out that don't get out of their homes, like homebound people, like elderly and veterans and things like that. You could do we did a drive for veterans. What's it called? Like what's the term for like stuff you use in a bathroom? Like
Toiletries.
toiletries. We did a toiletry.
We did
drive,
that.
and it
We
was
did
huge.
that for the home. We did that for the home and school.
Mhm.
Well, not the home and school, but you know what I'm talking about, the retirement center.
Mhm.
We did that for them back when I first became a Mason. We had a box and everybody brought their toiletries in and shipped it off to the retirement center
Yeah.
so that they would have stuff to read and toothpaste and all the different toiletries.
If you're doing good because you think you can get members out of it or you think you can get publicity out of it, you're not doing good. You're doing public relations. You're not doing good. People will benefit from it, but if you're doing it to take credit, if you're doing it, we always talk about being altruistic, right? And it's impossible to be altruistic, but if you're doing it for tangible, physical rewards in some way, you're not doing it for the right reason.
Well, I agree with that, but you know, a lot of the people that are listening, they're to sell it to their lodge, it'll be easier for them to sell it to some of the people in them.
I'm sure, yeah.
You know, for me, I love it that one of our lodges in our district has several police officers in the lodge, and they do a toy drive every year for the police officers. Talk about something important, you bigger city guys. Do a stuffed animal drive for your police officers to keep on their patrol cars for all those kids that are displaced when there's family issues. That's a big deal.
I like that.
That's a big deal, and that's not expensive either. Just a little stuffed animal that costs you $1 will make all the difference in the world to this kid when there's a stressful situation.
I like that a lot. That's a great idea.
So there's always ways that we can contribute without having to spend a ton of money and without having to market ourselves to the public in doing so. All you got to do is collect all those stuffed animals and just take it down there and drop them off. Say, here, we thought that you would like to have these.
Mm-hmm.
And walk away.
Your community becomes a better place.
Don't take a picture. Just walk away.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And going back to even like the toothbrush thing, a lot of people think you'd be surprised there are children who don't own toothbrushes. There are children that don't know how to brush their teeth. Talking about the backpack drive, there are kids that probably would not have otherwise had backpacks.
Yeah.
We take so many things for granted. And I just know this from working in public education. You have kids that they go home and their parents aren't even there. Right? So anything you can provide for them, kids don't deserve that. Right? Kids are kind of held hostage by their parents as far as like how good a parent they are. They don't have a way to choose that. They have no choice. And so they
didn't have a choice in that.
Yeah, it's not their fault. And they should not have to suffer from the bad decisions of their parents more than is inevitable. So anything you could do to help, be it a stuffed animal that a police officer can give them, a toothbrush, a backpack. I got a soft spot for kids, right? So anything you could do to help them. I also have a soft spot for elderly people. So anything you do to help them, it's huge.
Right.
It goes so far.
Well, one of the favorite things around our area, we have our trunk or treat at our church, and right across the street from our church is the nursing home. And so the kids will always go over there and trick or treat with the older people at the nursing home because they love to give out candy to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
It makes their day to see all these kids dressed up in costumes. So just going over there doing trick or treating with the nursing home is precious to elderly people. Going over and singing carols during Christmas, that's precious to elderly people. We just, out of sight, out of mind. We don't think about these things. We don't put enough thought into these things. And we could help in so many more ways than just doing a fundraiser to get money for scholarships. We could do so much that would leave a bigger impression on our community than just giving out a couple of scholarships every year.
No, When I was doing student council, I was just thinking of it as you said this, and I don't think this is the approach to go, but I'm just going to share it anyway. There was you have a state organization, Texas Association of Student Councils, and they have
I remember you talking about this.
they have certain it's not requirement but recommendations.
Let you all admire Oso Lodge. Oh, except for the fact that my Prince Charlie is back there, so you get to watch
It
that.
looks oh so good, but they have recommendations for certain committees like community service committee and public I couldn't tell you like school pride committee, government pride, and all that kind of. There's different committees, and throughout the year you appoint people in these committees, and they do certain things. And when the end of the year comes around, they have documented, hey, we did this and this and this and this, and this all gets turned into TASC. And if you get a certain amount of points, you get like recognition. And so I think something. I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying anything similar to that. But if there was some way of say for like Grand Lodge should say, okay, these are the kind of things that we really think a well-rounded lodge should have, and here are some ideas that you could do. We don't want to like have people turn things in, right? Because that's just more work. But if there's just some way to motivate lodges and kind of give them some guidance, like, hey, these are good ideas for committees. These are good ideas for programs in these committees, and I don't know, like maybe revamp the Vanguard program or something along those lines. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I just think it's good to have to encourage these multifaceted approaches. You see some batteries?
I was going to say Vanguard because basically when you were talking about here's a program for your lodge, almost like an action plan. That's the Vanguard. Oddly enough, though, a lot of people don't even consider it that. They just basically consider it like a piece of paper.
Yeah, if you're a Vanguard Lodge, you're doing Mason.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be expensive. There's so many different things on there that qualify you. In fact, going to the secretary school was one of them. There were two of them. We got points for going, and I didn't even know this until after. We're going to the school and then going to the fellowship afterwards. It'll be the same way in Arlington when it comes up to Arlington.
Yeah.
And there's another one in Waco coming up soon.
The Vanguard program is really it's a list of best practices, and if your lodge is doing them, you're I agree, you're on the right path. I was just thinking out loud, but I'm not saying that there's not room for improvement on anything at some point, but yeah, definitely the Vanguard. If more lodges did the Vanguard, a lot of their issues would probably disappear.
Yeah. Well, and what we could do as a body is assist in creating these lists of different programs that people can do that don't cost a lot of money, because lodges they think that if they are to try to attempt something like that, they're going to be spending a bunch of money that they don't have and all this. Most of it is just time. That's sharing of your time is the very first lesson in Masonry, in my opinion. That's our charity. And I think if we could get back to those basics, then we would be a little bit better grounded than where we are today.
It's very true. I agree. Yeah, we could definitely come up with just some. You made me think, so I was pulling it up, just looking at some examples. There's no reason you couldn't create there's nothing official about it, right? But it's just here's just some ideas for some good committees and some ideas that they could do. That most of them may be low cost, but there may be some other things like, hey, if you're in the position, you could try something like this. But definitely a well-rounded approach is, in my opinion, is a well-rounded approach is probably the best for most lodges.
Have a community involvement committee, and how you can do that. Oh, there's another one that I really loved that a little bitty lodge does. I don't know if they still do it anymore. Jason might know, but up in Kennedy, what they would do every Wednesday is they would have it would be ice cream Sunday day for the elderly at the nursing home. They would go and do ice cream with the elderly at the nursing home. That was kind of cool. I really liked that. I mean, it was a little bitty lodge, low impact. They don't have a bunch of money, so that was something cool that they could do, giving of themselves. I really did like that. I didn't enjoy eating the bologna sandwiches when I went, but I did like that idea of taking Sundays to the ladies. That was so bad. I just had to destroy it by saying that. I'm sorry. They don't always eat. Sometimes it's ham.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's start wrapping up.
All right. So did y'all want to hear the idea I stole from Dennis or no?
Oh, it was Dennis's idea? Oh, no, I'm good.
It
I
was.
would. I do.
At the
let's
risk
hear
of inflating his ego more,
That's impossible. That balloon will pop if it gets any fuller.
No, so we've had a lot of discussions in our York Rite here in Seguin, because we are actually getting to a point where we're regularly getting 14 to 20 coming to our chapter and council meetings. We're getting good attendance. Our AMD is growing, all that kind of stuff. So, we really have been kind of figuring out, okay, great, we're getting guys in, they're starting to come. Okay, what are we doing to, like, what's the point of them coming, right? Like, why should they keep coming? And so it's kind of moved towards where the chapter council and then AMD is really focused on education, specifically York Rite education, and going back to the degrees and stuff like that. So then you've got the commandery, and the commandery has kind of, because remember, these are all the same guys, so it's not like this is a different group over here. We're all the same guys, right? So to have the commandery also focus on education, not that you can have too much education, but it's kind of like, all right, well, we're already doing this thing, so what can the commandery do? So the commandery has kind of started to focus more on more community involvement. Like, we're trying to set up a volunteer day to go down to the local food bank, and actually go down there and volunteer. We just had where four guys went and actually did a color guard at a POW MIA ceremony for the local VFW, and they thought it was fantastic. So the commandery has kind of moved towards like community involvement and stuff like that, which, okay, well, just that's great, but why do they need to still come to meetings? And so the commander, Justin Hodge, Dennis, he and I were talking, and I said, well, okay, well, what about this? I said, so Oso Naval Lodge, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys do a floor school during your meeting,
Yes.
correct? So I
Yes.
said, well, what about, because one of the things that guys struggle with the commandery is that it's all marching and drilling ceremonies and stuff like that. Well, you know, I've had drill team experience, so it's kind of second nature to me. Some of the guys were, prior military, that kind of stuff, but a lot of guys aren't. So they kind of struggle with that. So at the last meeting, he, in the middle of the meeting, we got everybody into a row, and we just went over, basically, instead of a floor school for ritual, as in a Blue Lodge, we went over drill and ceremony tactics, just your basic stuff, right face, left face, draw swords, present swords, all that kind of stuff. And guys thought it was fantastic. They just that we should do this every meeting. This is, now we're coming to the meeting. Yeah, we're going to be doing all this other stuff. But like if we get called at the last minute, one of the hesitations for guys, if they say, hey, well, we need to, we're trying to do these color guards for all these different ceremonies and stuff like that. Well, guys are not comfortable just with going out there and doing it because they don't understand the whole basic. So we're going to start at every meeting spending 10, 20 minutes not going over the rituals, not going over the order of the temple or practicing that. It's just the basic, like, here's how you march, here's how you do this, how you do that and stuff. So
Yeah,
anyway,
and there's no reason you can't. Yeah, that's awesome. There's no reason you can't have some kind of a school of instruction.
right.
It doesn't matter what it is, just some kind of a school of instruction to help with what you do as a group. That's
Yeah.
part of what you do, and so you should do it well.
Yep.
I commend you on that. That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
you got me thinking. We do something similar with my York rat. We go over all the signs for a chapter and council before we even
Yeah.
open, because there's so many, and people
We need to too.
Yeah, it just gets it fresh on their mind, so at least they feel comfortable with it. But
You mean it's not deuces?
well, that's the super excellent. But yeah, I agree with what you're talking about. Sometimes you just gotta. It's hard to build when you don't have the foundation, and sometimes you just gotta be sure that foundation's there before you do anything with it. So that's good. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, and we do a little bit of floor school and education during that stated meeting, and now we have our own floor school every on the other Tuesdays that we're not doing it. We have floor school that we don't have our stated meetings. We have floor school, so it's really started taking off, and there's a stronger commitment from the officers.
Yeah.
Since we started the program. So it's really cool that how it does grow. And I'm glad to see that y'all are doing that, Jason. That's awesome.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that I just despise about some of the appendant bodies is going in there and it's just being a big cluster. And nobody knowing except for one person, you can't always count on Nelson Dunn to do everything. And God bless him, and he will. He'll teach everybody 100 times over, but you can't always rely on that one brother to keep us going. You got to do a little bit at a time to get there.
Cool. Well, let's go into final thoughts.
I'll go. I thought tonight was a really well-rounded conversation from bylaws to rules and regulations to making good men's butter, whipping them into shape. Makes me think of the State Fair of Texas. They got the
Don't encourage the boy. Damn it.
statue of butter that they carve out every year at the State Fair. I don't know if y'all have ever seen that. But anyway,
I haven't,
yeah,
but you're not Texan if you
well,
haven't eaten fried butter.
Brad, you can't have buttered biscuits if you don't make a good man butter.
yeah.
Good man's butter. Man,
Buttered muffins.
I just came up with a new product. Good man's butter. Yes. For your biscuits.
You guys talked
keep
about
that man butter away from me.
You guys talk about budgeting, man, and budgeting is huge for any business or any organization or even myself. I just, money is not something that is talked about. It's not talked about regularly in families or anything. It wasn't talked about to me growing up. And then when I started making money, I actually blew a lot of money because I didn't know how to use it properly until I learned budgeting. So finances is huge. And I didn't know what my lodge was even doing with money until I became the senior warden and started digging a little bit into what's going on. And then, yeah, I mean, once I became the master, I was like, already knew like, hey, this is not, we're not doing it right. Like this isn't like we're not going to last long if we keep up this way. But you know, from the education from you guys and everything that I've learned over the last year or so, it's really come together. So yeah, fundraising. That's the comeback. But anyway, that's all I got. Thank you for allowing me to join you guys, man. I really enjoy our conversations and seeing you guys and cutting up and having fun and talking about masonry.
Always enjoy it. Anyone else?
Me too.
Hey, I'm getting raised on October 22nd. So
Yeah.
after I become a made man, part of this organization, I'll feel more comfortable speaking up in these meetings. Right now, I feel like
Nice.
I should just keep my mouth shut because I don't know what I'm talking about. So
That's all
Probably no
right.
more than a lot.
Just tell them you're ready to start churning butter.
Hey, look, being ignorant on something has never stopped Dennis from talking about us.
Oh my
You're fine.
God.
well, I had to sit through him defending Ebenezer Scrooge. I know what you're talking
Yeah, what's up with that? Just because he relates
Somebody's
to
got to.
him.
Somebody's got to do it.
Well, congratulations, man. That's going to be awesome. They'll be here before you know it. Jason, you got anything?
That is awesome.
Nah, I mean that my inflating Dennis's ego was my last thought.
Is that really how you're
I'm
going
good.
to Is that what you're going to end on? Inflating Dennis's ego? Wow. Wow. Okay. I'll end by saying, first of all, as always, thank you all for coming on to the show and supporting Masonic Improvement as members of
What
the
about
Inner Circle.
Daniel? He didn't say anything.
Oh, crap. Sorry, Daniel.
No, all good here. I didn't have anything to add of great value. I'm just over here shaking my head at all the dad jokes, all the butter jokes.
Everything you offer.
I need
is
to do
great
butter.
value.
Yes.
Yeah, that was actually the last time we had a what's it? I can't remember the nationality, but he from like some European country, and he came and got his master's degree, and we asked him, what did you think after? He said, "I can't believe it's not butter." Anyway,
We were doing so well, Justin.
I appreciate all of you for coming onto the show and supporting Masonic Improvement, the Inner Circle. If you want in on this, if you want to join our Inner Circle, pretty easy to do. Don't let our conversation about higher dues scare you from the Inner Circle, because Inner Circle is very reasonable. It's very accessible. Check it out. There is a link in the description. For as low as $1.99, you can join the Inner Circle, and you'll get access to the links for all of our Inner Circle meetings. We also have private Zoom meetings. There's a lot to it, and so and all that money does it goes towards helping Masonic Improvement and keep the lights on, and we really don't get much of it, but every little bit does help. So we definitely appreciate everybody that helps out and jumps on and contributes to the conversation. But other than that, we talked like Brad pointed out, we covered a lot of stuff, and we haven't covered anything. It goes back to saying there's nothing new under the sun. We're not discussing anything new under the sun on Masonic Improvement, because at this point in Masonic Improvement's career, we're just refining the stuff we already learned about. Unless we're like doing an educational presentation on some esoteric concepts like Kabbalah, most of the stuff that we talk on here, budgeting, dues, degree fees, rituals, mission statements, these are all things that we have hit on before. And The reason that we continue to hit on it is because, for one, just like in education, if I teach you something one time, that doesn't mean it's stuck, right? And I may have to teach you 10 times or 20 times until it sticks. Unlike education, after a year, they're not in your classroom anymore, right? But you guys that come here consistently, this is a classroom and there's no teacher. We're all learning from each other. But we're reiterating the important things because it is important. And we all have longer than a year to learn from each other. We have as long as we're willing to come in here and talk. That's how long we have. So we're reinforcing. We're really, it feels like beating a dead horse. But just because Dennis has talked about it 10 times, or I start to say something and Dennis is like, you've already talked about that 1,000 times. It's fine because it might be the first time that this other guy logged into our show, right? Or it might be the time that someone listens to it and they're like, oh, well, when you say it that way, I can kind of see where you're coming from. So there's always value in revisiting concepts, and we do a lot of that. And honestly, until everybody's on the same page on some of these things, probably keep reinforcing that. The goal of Masonic improvement is to make it obsolete, and I don't know that that's will ever happen because improvement never becomes obsolete. But I think that's a noble goal to make Freemasonry so awesome, and every lodge is thriving so well that everything we talk about, like, yeah, we already know about the whole dues thing. We charge X amount. We have everything covered. We just installed a second pool table by the pool. We got a pool table by the pool. So that'd be pretty good. And so again, thank you everybody Daniel appreciates that, even if you don't, just so you know. But I appreciate all of you coming on here, and always look forward to this. See, emoji, he appreciated it. Thank you, Daniel.
I'd like to add that the value that I get from this myself, I wouldn't keep doing this if I didn't get value myself. So when we're talking about all these things, I'm not the authority. Justin's not the authority. None of our inner circle members are the authority, but we bring context to the discussion. So like Justin said, we reiterate these concepts, and through these discussions, we touch on different points, adding context to it. And I think this is important because, like today, we talked about the real charity in Masonry, which is giving of ourselves, right? And not just saying that's what you're supposed to do. We actually gave examples on how we could do that in inexpensive ways in which we can do that, to where it just costs us our time. And so with other programs that we've had on these topics, we haven't always touched on all these things. We may have said a couple of them, but there's always new ones that come up that we hear about along the way that we want to share with you. And they're not going to come up if we don't go back through them every once in a while and discuss them. I really am glad to talk about budgeting and increasing dues. Not that that's what the secretary school was about, which is where we started on this journey. The secretary school teaches us how to use Grandview and all the benefits that go along with it. Not only that, but they also teach they have a segment that Robert Park created about civility and pride and ego, and where that can destroy a lodge, how it creates factions and can hurt lodges and create divisive divisive moments within a lodge, and it's all based on our ego, our pride and ego. And so there's a lot that school has to offer, and I recommend that everyone that does go to the secretary school. And I told my lodge, if you want to know what my job is, then you should go to the secretary of school. I'm not going to explain it to you every time you question something that I'm doing. I'm just not going to. Go to the school, learn about it, and then you can question me on what I'm doing wrong and say, hey, shouldn't you be doing it this way? And I'm going to listen to you. But just to have somebody question every move is not what I'm going to do. But and nor should anyone do that with their secretary. That creates tension and divisiveness. But we talked about a little bit of marketing 101. That's what a lot of us are doing in a lot of the programs that we do. And if that's the case, then as long as you know that that's what you're doing it for, and you can do that with a clear conscience, then, it's your Freemasonry, right? It's your lodge's culture, not for me to say. Now, I will argue and differ with you all day long till I'm blue in the face, but ultimately it's your lodge. And this is Freemasonry, and we are allowed to have opinions and discuss these things. If we don't, we're not going to. The biggest education that we have is right here with what we have in this group, which I love, which is the back and forth rhetoric. That's what makes good men better, is people willing to discuss it, willing to go over the hard topics and contemplate different ways to solve the problem. I was listening to Manly P. Hall, one of his lectures. I've mentioned that a lot, and I recommend that all of our viewers do that. I was listening to one of his lectures, and he was talking about, it's a shame that our world is in the state that it's in. And this was back in the 90s, and it holds true today. But it's a shame that our world is in the state that it's in, knowing that we are the most intelligent beings on this planet, and we're given certain capabilities by our Creator to where we can solve any problem. All we have to do is want to. And that's the big thing right there. All we have to do is want to. So we can go to our lodges and just sit there and complain about the problems, or we can decide we're going to fix the problems and make that decision. I think that if we all had that attitude every time we go to lodge, no matter which lodge, and we're open to put our own ego and pride to the side and just enjoy what our fraternity has to offer us, we'd be much more willing to give a little more to support that fraternity. I truly believe that. We discussed that if you want to know the way to a man's heart, follow his checkbook. If I find something enjoyable, I'm going to spend money on it. If I don't, then I'm not. It's as simple as that. And I can tell you that Freemasonry is more important to me than even my church. And I say that because it gives me the opportunity, because my salvation is mine alone. Nobody can give me salvation. But what I can get from my fraternity is brotherly love and affection, people to help me through this journey, and not just telling me that I have to go through them to get to my maker, right? I'm allowed to have my maker, and you're allowed to have yours. I think that's very important. So when we talk about all these things that we believe in spending money on, we're doing it. We're not just talking about it. We're doing it. I've thought many times that I could just walk away at this point and call a few brothers up and have a nice dinner meeting every so often and just enjoy each other's company and contemplate things and almost like they did back in the days of Plato and Aristotle and all that. just sitting around and contemplating all the forces of nature that affect our lives and where we fit into this big picture. But then if I didn't have the brothers that I have today and the challenges that are put in front of me today, then I wouldn't grow in the areas that I really need to. I would only grow in the areas that I want to. I love education. That's my favorite part of Freemasonry. And I want to pursue that every time I go to lodge. However, it's the other things that I don't necessarily enjoy that teach me something a little bit, that teach me a little more than what I would get on my own. And that's the value in Freemasonry for me. Every one of you brothers have value in my life. Every one of you. Even Justin. Yeah, deuces. I love good deuces too. But thank you, Jason. I needed that. I needed that reassurance. Thank you. But every one of you bring value to my life, and I hope that Justin and I are able to bring a little bit more value to your life as we do this. We're not doing this to boost our own ego. We're doing this just trying to help. We're willing to have the hard conversations that other people aren't willing to have. And we're not always popular because of it too. So, this is, it really means something that you guys show up every week and talk to us. I just wanted y'all to know that. And I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm looking forward to our dinner party that we're going to have for the inner circle and their close vouched for associates in January. And like I said, it's only vouched for associates. Pretty soon we're going to send out the message that we'll start taking the sign up for who's coming, and we will have a discussion with our inner circle on who gets to come. And it won't be online either.
So
but we'll have that
not necessarily a
discussion.
sign up, it's more of a request.
Yes. You would like to participate.
Okay.
And if you can be vouched for and everybody feels the same way about you being there, then you'll get to be there. If they don't, then we won't, because we will not have an unsafe space for our discussions, because they are controversial a lot of times. And no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're controversial because I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. And I'm not going to let anybody control my narrative at all. That's what this fraternity is founded on, and that's what we're going to support with Masonic improvement. So anyways, I look forward to the dinner. The notices will go out soon to everyone that it is time to start the sign-up list. And I've even thought about going ahead and doing a pre-sale ticket on just the dinner itself. And then that way we know that that's covered. And
smart.
And then drinks will be on anybody when they come. Plus, when we end up having 100 people show up, that's a big deal to ask the waiters and waitresses to take each person's check.
Yeah.
It
was already crazy with what, 40?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. It's a big deal. It's a big deal when you fill up a room. That's for sure. Especially when we've had a great conversation like we had and everybody's riled up and in the moment. That's a big challenge to fight through that to get paid.
That was that says a lot, because you had some people that looked at their menu and were like, "Oh, this is just too expensive. I'm not going to go." But we still filled up that room. We had people asking after we were full. We had to have another table brought in to support. I guess it was 6 or 7 people that said they had to be there. And I'm glad we did, because that one table alone had
the one of the deepest discussions I've had in a long time.
Yeah, I sat over there with Tolbert. Were you there at that table too?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was me, you, and Tolbert, and I don't remember who else was there.
Yeah.
But it was pretty awesome.
Who else was there? Oscar was there.
Oh yeah, Oscar.
And then who else was it that was there? It wasn't Josh.
I can't remember the face, but wasn't Trenton, was it?
No. Well, maybe.
I can kind of remember the face, but I can't remember who it was.
Right. I had a couple of scotches by then, so I was
Me too.
I was deep in the conversation at that point.
Deep in my cups and deep in conversation.
Yeah,
But we're
by the way, John Tolbert's coming to Victory Lodge this month, or like technically next month, I guess October. Yeah.
nice, brothers. Y'all need to show up for that. John is an incredible speaker, has so much insight on Freemasonry and all the things that attribute to it. So he is a great resource. Y'all need to go to Victory Lodge.
There are a few
Yeah,
for sure.
Masons that you can just sit within listening range and learn a lot. John Tolbert is easily one of them.
Yeah.
So definitely go. You don't even have to talk. Like,
And that's
you just sit there and listen and just learn all kinds of stuff.
yes. And that's the beauty of things like this dinner that we're going to have at Grand Lodge is that you get to be in the room with these type of brothers. And it's not just 3 or 4 that you're going to see when you walk in that room. When you walk in that room, you're going to see 3 or 4 every 2 or 3 seats. I mean, it's just packed with brothers that are intelligent, knowledgeable on everything that they discuss, and really make the dinner meaningful.
And
It's a meaningful experience, and I get to be there too.
Hey, it goes back to saying if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. That is not a danger for anybody that goes into there, because they're just, like you said, it's a who's who of the wisest, most intelligent Freemasons in Texas. Sometimes not
It
even
really
in Texas.
is. It really is. These are the guys that don't get caught up in the hoopla of the grand banquets and all that kind of stuff. They go there for this specific reason, to hang out with brothers that they don't get to see every day, and have some of the best discussions that Freemasonry has to offer.
By that definition, is definitely the right room for anybody.
Yes.
Yes.
I definitely feel privileged to be in when I'm with these brothers. I truly do.
Absolutely.
So that being said, we've got that on the horizon. With that also being said, you need to get yourself to Grand Lodge. I was told again this weekend that there's going to be different things happening that that you will want to be there to support the person that you believe in being in the office. And so I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but I can certainly tell you need to be there, because your vote will matter. It will make the difference. We need another packed auditorium again, hands down. So all that being said, this was a great night, great talk. I love you. I appreciate you. And keep it between the points.
Deuces.
Do you even know what deuces are?
Yeah, I'm looking at one.
Yeah,
A big old
that's right.
deuce.
I am the shit. That's right.